All right, we're gonna ready to start here in just a couple of moments. So glad that you guys can join us today, and we might be doing two broadcasts today. Not sure, but we're gonna give it a try. And I had to get something off the microphone there, and but yeah, we're gonna jump right in and talk about this particular topic. You can check the community page. We kind of started the conversation there, and here's where we're going to continue it, okay? So anyway, I hope you guys having a wonderful day, and then we're going to give people about 2 minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and from there get things started. All right. Thank you again for joining us for this broadcast right here on Journeyman and Journeywoman YouTube channel. So glad that you guys can join us today in this wonderful day of May the 4th, 2023. And again, so glad that you guys can join us. I was just outside earlier. Again, we've been having a lot of cloudy days where I am in this part of the country. And, I know it all has its purpose, but, I'm ready for the sun, ready to get out, just get some more sunlight out here. So, but that means I got to spend more time outside and all of that. So, yeah, I spend my Thursdays, just getting out, just went for a long walk, and it was just quite enjoyable and quite peaceful. But anyway, so glad that you guys could join us. For those at work, like my brother Samuel, so good to see you, and everybody else here that will be joining us momentarily. I want to jump right in on these two stories. It was a post that I wrote first thing this morning. I want to kind of jump right into it. Just talking about, it gives us a good opportunity to really address a much larger issue, amongst our people. And because one of the things that we got to be very careful of is this, is just how mainstream media coupled with social media, how they all, is designed to tap into your emotions to such a degree to where you get distracted from the real issues. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's what we try to do here on this platform. We really try to look at the real issues here. We're not here to tell you what to think, and that's one of the things I run into a lot is that people want you to tell them what to think. And I'm not here for that. Okay. I'm not here to tell you what to think. Okay. You're grown. Most of y'all, hopefully you're grown. So I'm not here to tell you what to think. What I'm simply here to do is just simply to lay out some information for you and for you to consider, for you to process, and ultimately for you to come up with your own conclusion on the matter. Okay. That's kind of how it works. That's how we try to do here. We're not going to be dogmatic and say, if you don't believe this way, you don't think this way, then hit the road, Jack. No, we want to be able to look at these things from as holistically as possible, and then allow people to come up with their own conclusions. So anyway, the post that I did earlier is right here on our community page. I was talking about these two issues here, two news items that came up, two unfortunate situations. The first one dealing with Jordan Neely. He was the young man that was murdered in the New York subway. He was basically choked to death. Quite unfortunate, and we're going to dive into the whys and all that stuff. Okay. And for those that got very short attention spans here, I am not defending the guy who choked and killed him. All right. I have to say that ahead of time because folk would say, okay, I got 1 minute. You better tell me what side you on this. You got to think that way sometimes. So it's like, okay, no, I'm not. Everything I'm saying, I'm not defending that. Okay. It's indefensible. All right. And I went into, for the readers in the house, I kind of gave you most of kind of my thinking on that whole situation, but we're going to get into it in this video form. And then we're also going to look at this Dion Patterson case here too, because you're going to find that there's similarities with both, and they both address a much deeper issue. Okay, that I find that oftentimes many people like to run away from. So let's go ahead and get into it. So let me bring up this story here about Jordan Neely. Let me see if this is the article I want to go on. Okay, so maybe I'll go into this one here. So I'll just tell you a little bit about it first for those who don't know. Maybe you don't know the situation. And then we'll get into the actual articles that I have here. Okay. But in short, what happened here is that you had a man who was on a New York subway train. And according to witnesses that were on the scene, they said that he was being very erratic. I mean, where he was actually getting in the faces of some of the passengers. And so because of that, you had this young man, another young man, 24 years old, a white male, who felt that it was in his, he wanted to do something about it. And so what he did was he basically was able to apprehend this dude, this Jordan Neely, and he basically put him in a chokehold that ultimately led to him being choked to death, literally. And so that's what happened in a nutshell. And that's what the Jordan Neely situation. So this is what we're going to talk about first. And then we're going to go down to Atlanta and talk about that situation. Okay. So first, what I will say is this: anybody that's familiar with, public transportation, New York is the extreme. Okay. Not everybody lives in New York. You have other cities as well: Baltimore, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Atlanta. I mean, Boston, you name it. It doesn't have to even be cities. Cities you'll find where it's heightened, it's even worse, but it doesn't have to be a city. It can be small towns. It can be small communities that have public transportation. Anybody that has any experience riding on public transportation, you at one time or another have encountered people who act extremely erratic. It comes with the territory. And so that's, it's kind of par for the course for the most part. And so something that I guess it was my mother that taught me, because I part of my childhood grew up in North Philadelphia. She always say, Dwayne, don't look at him. Don't look at him. And I wouldn't do it. I was scared. My mom, the way she was squeezing my hand, no, don't look at him. So it was like this thing where, you just develop, when someone comes in and they're just being all loud or crazy or whatever. One of the things we don't look at them. If you're reading a book, you better find one. If you got a window seat, you better look out that window. You know what I'm saying? But, at the same time, be conscious of, your surroundings. If he's in there slinging a blade or something, that's something different. But other than that, you just kind of not You just play it off, okay? I'm talking just in the general sense. We were not there in the train at that moment, so we can't speak on that specific situation. But right now we're just talking generalities, and then we're going to get into the specifics, okay? So generally speaking, that's what you do. Either that, or if you're in a train situation, you just move to the next train, depending on how the person is acting. You know what I'm saying? A lot of time, in most of my experience, anytime I've encountered someone like that, you either don't look at them, or if it got too bad, I'll just move to the next car and then just keep it moving. And it's typically they don't have nowhere to go on that. But it's something about eye contact. I don't know what it is. Maybe we got some experts in the house that know more about that. But it's something about once you get eye contact with some folks, it turns into a whole nother situation. So people who have experience riding in mass public transportation, you kind of know how this goes down, how this plays out. Now, like I said, we're speaking in general terms here. As far as this specific story is concerned, what we're being told is that, yes, this man did come into that environment in a subway and, basically, once again, was acting erratic. He was getting in the faces of some of the passengers. And that's when this guy came in and basically wanted to be Superman, but except Superman has this policy that he don't kill anybody. But anyway, which this guy did. And so anyway, so with that being said, what this guy did, like I said, he choked him and the guy eventually died, and he died later in the hospital. Now, this Jordan Neely, from what we're being told, and like I said, we're going to get into the article in a moment, he actually has a long history of being of a record of doing just this, meaning that, being erratic, it's basically some mental issues going on. And like I said, the article will get into that, because I want to make sure we're painting as full as possible based on the information we have on Mr. Neely, so that we can get a fuller understanding of him and, what we know of his background and all of this stuff. And, and again, so you got that. Now, the guy who, as far as I can, I just checked, there's the guy that killed him. He's a former Marine and 24 years old. And, as far as his name being released, to my knowledge, it has not been released just yet. And that's very unfortunate. But I'm sure that eventually they're going to release his name. They're going to put that out there. But, based on his actions, I don't know if this dude has any kind of experience at all riding on trains or anything like that. But clearly, we don't know. But what I can tell you is this, and this is what I wrote earlier on my community page, is that nothing, and I underscore nothing at all, especially if this man was unarmed, can justify killing this man, period. So there's no justification for that at all. You understand? So our only hope is that justice will come and prevail in this particular situation. But there's no reason at all, that this man had to be killed. And this is why I really want to make sure that people understand that and hear this. He's a former Marine, which means he's a trained killer. Okay, which means that he's also trained not to kill. When you're in the military, it's the utmost importance for you in high tense situations for you to demonstrate self-control. That's what you're trained to do. That's what the Marines pride themselves in doing, in demonstrating self-control. He did not demonstrate that. So, so when I hear these people on social media I'm talking about, and these are usually like the alt-right people, well, he's a great American and he's a hero and all this other stuff. No, you're supposed to demonstrate self-control. You understand what I'm saying? In a situation like that, if anything, the focus should have been on making sure that the passengers were safe, getting them off. If the man didn't have any weapons or anything like that, he's really not that much of a danger. You understand what I'm saying? So how is it that people can ride the subways and can ride trains and ride buses every day? Listen, you got folks that are on these trains and act erratic every day. And we never hear of we don't hear of cases where people are always being taken out left and right like that. You understand what I'm saying? So no, you need to get yours, period. So there's no excuse for that at all. So hopefully, like I said again, we'll see justice prevail in this particular situation. But I really want to underscore that this ain't just some, he was just a good Samaritan. He was just trying to do, he was looking after, and trying to protect the people and all that. No, 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 no. That may have been the case. That may have been his reasoning in the beginning. But there's no justification for going right out and killing this dude. No way, no how, and no sir. Okay. So anyway, so that's that. So let's get into the article. We're going to read the article and we're going to get a fuller picture because, see, again, the whole purpose of this broadcast is we want to take these hot issues, not so that we can get clicks and likes and stuff like that. I mean, that's good and all, but it's really for our people. We got to learn how to take the emotion out of these things and really try to peer in and look at the more deeper issue, not just with this particular case, but also the other case we're going to talk about. Okay. So with that being said, now we can get into the article and let's read a little bit about this whole situation. Okay. Some of it's going to be repetitive based on what I just shared with you, but I'm going to get through it as quickly as I can. Okay. Jordan Neely, the homeless man choked to death on the subway, sank into a deep depression after his mother was brutally murdered by his stepfather in 2007 and was not properly treated for his mental illness, friends and family told the Post. Neely, who died Monday afternoon after being held in a chokehold for 15 minutes by a strap hanger, descended into a complete mess after his mother, Christy Neely, was reportedly strangled to death and suffered into a suitcase when she was just 14, according to his aunt Neely. Ain't that something? Let me read that again. Isn't that something? Neely, who died Monday afternoon after being held in a chokehold for 15 minutes by a strap hanger, descended into a complete mess after his mother, Christy Neely, was reportedly strangled to death and then stuffed into a suitcase when he was just 14 years old. So his mother also died at the hands of the father. His mother died because she was strangled. Man, I tell you this, when you want to talk about generational stuff, this is a good example of that. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and continue. Again, we're trying to get as much information as possible on all of this. Okay. It's really sad. Anyway, my sister Christy was murdered in 2007. And after that, he has never been the same. I mean, he's a child. I mean, that I can only imagine that. Let's see. It had a big impact on him. He developed depression and it grew and became more serious. He was schizophrenic, PTSD. Doctors knew his condition and he needed to be treated for that. Carolyn, who described herself as Jordan's closest living relative, said she pleaded with judges and doctors to help get the proper care for her nephew, but to no avail. The whole system just failed him. He fell through the cracks of the system, she says. Now, we're going to address all of these points here because there's a lot of points here. Christy Neely was murdered by Sean Sutherland, then 50, who stuffed her dead body into a suitcase and threw it on the shoulder of the Henry Hudson Parkway, according to a 2012 NewJersey.com report. All right, let's continue here. Jordan was even called to testify in Sutherland's murder trial when he was 18 years old. The relationship had been crazy, a fight every day, he said, when describing the relationship between his 36-year-old mother and Sutherland, according to the news outlet. During the trial, Jordan said he tried to say goodbye to his mother before school on April 4, 2007, but Sutherland blocked him from their bedroom. He said later that day, Sutherland packed up and moved out. Sutherland was found guilty of murder. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison, March 2012. Nidra Guba of Washington Heights, who said she wanted to be identified as a close friend of the family, said she knew Jordan's late mother for most of her life and knew Jordan since he was 4 years old. He suffered so much because of what happened to his mother, Guba told the Post. She was his sole support. His father sure wasn't. Guba said Jordan loved doing his Michael Jackson impersonations on the subway when he was younger, but spiraled into difficulties in recent years. He liked to hang out at train stations, Carolyn said. He wasn't aggressive. That's not who he is. He loved to dance, and that was his outlet. That was his mental outlet after his mother died. Jordan reportedly had been arrested numerous times. He really started going downhill 2 years ago, Guaba said. I would see him all the time and give him something to eat. It was like he gave up. He felt his dreams were dead. He needed his mother. Cops said that Jordan had been living on the streets and had a recorded history of mental illness. But Guba said that he had a place to live recently, but did not want to stay there. All right. Let's continue here. Both women said Jordan's father had not been around much. Carolyn Neely said Andre Zachary, now 60, abandoned Jordan as a baby. Nidra said Jordan lived with his father occasionally, but the two did not get along. Carolyn said she last spoke to Jordan on FaceTime 7 months ago. He would call me. We would video chat. He'd come to me when he had a problem, says Carolyn, who now lives in Waterton, New York. During the last call, she said he was smiling. He had a beautiful smile. Jordan had testified his mother and Sutherland met in law school. At the time she died, Christy Neely was working as a teleprompter in Manhattan. Sources say Sutherland had worked for a law firm at some point. Carolyn Neely said that she started a GoFundMe for her nephew, and said another one was created early Tuesday is a fake one. Albert Vasquez, a freelance journalist who filmed a video of the shocking incident, told the Post Neely was unhinged, yelling at riders that he didn't have food or drinks and doesn't care if he goes to jail. So this is what he was doing at the time, before, this former Marine guy stepped in. Okay. Okay. So let me read that part again. Albert Vasquez, a freelance journalist who filmed the video of the shocking incident, told the Post Neely was unhinged, yelling at riders that he didn't have food or drinks and doesn't care if he goes to jail. So he was at this point in a complete meltdown. Mr. Vasquez said that at the time he did not believe the 30-year-old man could die. None of us were thinking that, he said. He was moving and he was defending himself. The city medical examiner ruled Neely's death a homicide Wednesday and said that his cause of death was a compression of neck. Prosecutors are mulling whether to press charges against the Marine who choked Neely. Ain't no mulling as far as I'm concerned on that. I mean, that's murder. I mean, that's just what it is. Anyway, several prominent local elected officials have denounced the fatal encounter on Twitter, including City Comptroller Brad Lander, who tweeted, "New NYC is not Gotham," and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who wrote, "Jordan Neely was murdered." I mean, she's right. I mean, this is open and closed as far as I'm concerned. Both congressmen and the comptroller. Okay, and then it goes on. All right, so that's him right there. I'm not trying to show video or the pictures. I'm sure many of y'all have seen that. Let's let the DA conduct the investigation. This is the mayor saying this. Conduct the investigation with law enforcement officials. To really interfere with that is not the right thing to do, and I'm not going to be responsible and allow them to do their job. And I am going to be responsible and allow them to do their job and allow them to determine exactly what happened here. All right, and then it goes on. And so there you go. So that's pretty much what happened there in that whole situation. And hats off at least to the New York Post for at least allowing, giving us a little bit more information, behind Mr. Neely and what brought him to that point. Let me see. Okay, so this article will pretty much say more of the same thing. Okay, so with that being said, let me pause here for a second, and then we'll jump into the second story. What really I think angers me a whole lot is when I listen to people on social media, and it could be YouTube, it can be Twitter, it can be Facebook, whatever, it doesn't matter, who will hear a story like this. The only thing that you see is that it was a white man that killed him. That's all you need to see. And then from there, it's off to the races. Your logic just kind of falls right in. And then you start looking at, well, they need to do something. They got to release the information. And you jump into all this stuff. We've already identified, if you're just joining us, we just went through and we talked about, like I said, I actually started the conversation earlier today over on our community page, where I kind of laid out kind of what I just went through. This, we're just going through, giving some more information. But in short, and I emphasize again, that this former Marine who interfered, who felt like he had to come in and to handle business, that was, from what we can see, because there's no mention of this man having any kind of weapon or anything like that, other than getting in the faces of people and yelling at them. There's really nothing else that we see here that any level-headed, normal human being will conclude that this man needed to die. There's no excuse. There's no, I don't care what his lawyer team was going to try to come up with. There's no excuse for that based on the information that we have presently. Now, if it comes out he had a weapon and he was attacking folks, now that's a whole nother situation. But as I emphasize again, for those that are just coming in on here, if you are someone who has any kind of history or experience riding on public transportation, seeing people going into these mental breakdowns is pretty normal. It really is. And that's why you got a percentage of people who swear that they'll never ride public transportation for that reason. But for those who have no choice and don't have the luxury to do so, typically the way you handle it is one of two things. You either ignore them, or if you're in a train situation, you just move to the next car. It's just as simple as that. And like I said, again, based on the information that we have right now, this sounds like it was pretty much the same type of situation. But this individual, this former Marine dude, who at the time of this broadcast, they have not released his name. That's why I'm referring to him as the former Marine, 24 years old, basically took it where he felt like he was doing someone a favor and not just strangling this dude, but strangling him to death. And what I've emphasized over and over again is that there's no reason and there was no excuse for that at all. They may rule it that it was accidental, but no. New Yorkers, just like anybody that rides that train on a regular basis, pretty much have a general idea of how to handle themselves when you're dealing with people like that. You know what I'm saying? You just don't. See, for me, I've come close a couple of times where, someone is kind of going in a little, you could tell they're a little crazy, and seriously, it'll be like they just be back there screaming. And then you like, in back of my mind, I'm like, please don't come here. Don't come over here. Please, please, please. Then they start yelling and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden they get quiet. I ain't trying to be funny, y'all, but then then what you do is you go, you cut your eye because you're like, and sometimes I've done that and they be staring right at me, like waiting for me to do something. And I'm like, nope. I'll find something I'll find an app. I'll design an app on my phone not to look over there. And as long as you don't look, they'll move right along. It's something with eye contact. You know what I mean? And most people who ride mass transportation, they know this. Or like I said, again, they'll get up and just move and just keep it moving, because most people, they just tired. They want to get to wherever their destination is. But I'm repeating myself on this because I want for those who are not familiar with this to understand just kind of how the unspoken code of conduct is when you're on these trains, and how this man, this former military dude, Marine, who's trained not only to kill, but also trained not to kill, even in situations of that's very intense. He's trained not to kill. Okay. But in a situation like that, where most New Yorkers, most riders and passengers, I'm talking grandmas even, when they're in a situation like that, they know to keep it cool, to keep it chill. They're going to be just like, okay, let me get off. Okay, how many bus stops? Okay, got it. Most people riding the train, they know how to handle themselves. But this dude, apparently military trained, didn't know how to do that. But somehow he didn't know how to do that and then went off like that. That's why I said there's no excuse for that. None. You understand what I'm saying? Now, with all of that being said, now that we've, that's all been very clear. Okay, we made that all very clear. We cannot skip over the other stuff that we just read about the background of this man. First, we just identified the fact that Neely, he was, ever since he saw his mother his mother was murdered. His mother just wasn't murdered. His mother was murdered by his father. His mother wasn't just murdered by his father. His mother was strangled by his father and put in a suitcase, and then that suitcase tossed it in the highway. Now, can you imagine the trauma that a child at that age, I think he was like 14 years old, that would go through a mind of a child on that? See, Juanea, right, this is what I'm saying. I know I'm skipping. I saw Juanea's comment. She said, yep, you don't make eye contact. My mother used to say that all the time. Right, this is exactly what I'm saying. We all get this training. I mean, if you ride mass transportation, you get that training automatically. That's what I'm saying. There's no excuse what this dude did. But anyway, so this young man, getting back to my point, this young man saw all of that. And so when you go, especially like in places like, you see this more so in New York, not so much like in other cities I've been to, maybe DC, I don't know, where you got all these entertainers that be out here dancing and stuff on the trains and all that. When I hear that, I'll be like, okay, it depends on how I'm feeling. Sometimes it's kind of funny or whatever, and then sometimes it's like, okay, especially if the person ain't talented. But it don't matter. I just kind of keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, I got 5 more stops to go. I just keep it moving. But a lot of these people, they got some issues going on for real. And as we are engaging in this conversation, in this broadcast here, we're going to get a good look at the mirror, because what I submit to you is not just people on the train that got issues. You got folks as close as this comment section that got issues. Do you understand what I'm saying? Ain't nobody in particular, so don't think I'm talking about anybody specific in this comment section. Okay, not that. But my point is that this mental health issue is a very serious one that a lot of our people, unfortunately, the only time we will fully engage in it is when you have a character in the story, so to speak, who happens to be white. Now, all of a sudden, oh, he's having a mental breakdown, which it sounds like he was. But there's got to be a bit of honesty in this, as we're looking at this situation as well. Okay. So anyway, let's move on to the next story. All right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put these two stories together. We're going to look at the similarities there. And then we're going to also see just how prevalent this issue really is and why we need to be focused on getting to the root cause of this, because this thing happens a whole lot. Do you understand that there are many homeless people that do get beat up out here? Not by white people. There are a lot of homeless people out here that get beat up all the time. Why? And in many of those cases, it's because they go off on just people walking down the street. And, you go off on the wrong person, ain't no telling what's going to happen. I'm just going to speak for myself. I mean, if I'm walking down the street and, someone just comes out of the blue and they want to start swinging, I got to make a choice here. You know what I'm saying? Especially if my family's with me, I'm not running. You understand what I'm saying? I'm going to have to defend myself. You understand what I'm saying? So this is very prevalent in our amongst our people, to the point where we even make comedic jokes. It's funny. We make fun of this stuff, but it's very serious. And a lot of times it comes up in our face. Only, but we laugh. It's funny, and it's just, we brush it off until we get this ingredient where in this particular story, there's a white person involved. Now all of a sudden, now we got let's start marching. Let's start doing something. Off with their head stuff. Okay. And see, my thing is about looking at the solution. You know what I mean? Let's look at the root cause. Okay, so now let's take a look at this second story here. Now, I would say within 48 hours after that story took place, there was another story that took place down in Atlanta. I was getting this notification about it. Was they were saying some mass shooting taking place in Atlanta. I was like, oh gosh. And so anyway, followed up on the story, and this is how this story went down. I wrote about this as well. Suspect charged with the murder, aggravated assault charges in Atlanta shooting that killed 1, injured 4. All right, so let's go through it real quick here. Now, this is within 48 hours. Oh, trying by make it sell said, I read the man was throwing garbage on people too. Yeah, that's why I said there's little elements that we don't know. You know what I mean? So anyway, an 8-hour manhunt that threw a major American city into fear and chaos ended when barking dogs at a suburban condo complex led to the arrest of a U.S. Coast Guard veteran suspected of fatally shooting a woman and injuring 4 in a medical waiting room at the bustling heart of Atlanta, authority says. The suspect, Dion Patterson, 24. Now, this guy's also 24. This is numbers keeps coming up here. Has been charged with 1 count of murder and 4 counts of aggravated assault. Fulton County jail records show he was awaiting his first court appearance on Thursday. Patterson had sought treatment. Now, this is the part we're going to focus on as well. Patterson had sought treatment around noon Wednesday at the Northside Medical Midtown facility because he was dissatisfied with the care he was getting from the Department of Veterans Affairs. His mother told investigators, according to a high-level source with the Atlanta Police Department. But when doctors wouldn't give him his anti-anxiety drug, Ativan, Patterson got angry. His mother told CNN affiliate WSB. He pulled a handgun and began firing, the source tells CNN. Then took off on foot, stole a vacant pickup truck idling at a gas station and drove it north into Cobb County. With schools and businesses on lockdowns for miles around, police drew on camera technology systems and information from Patterson's family to blanket the zone. Finally getting a tip that spurred an undercover officer into a foot chase with the suspect Wednesday night at the gated complex, Cobb County Police Chief Stuart Van Hooser says. All right, we'll just skip here to the, let's see here. Okay, all right, let's go on down here. Federal health worker Amy St. Pierre, 38, died on the scene. The Fulton County Medical Examiner office said, as 4 other injured women were rushed to a nearby hospital, according to police. And then it goes on. And this is, the way that, and just little extra points here, I guess. The way even how they wrote this article, they're trying to bend it to where it's an anti-gun article. Just the first right here, just this first paragraph, and then further down they get into talking about the Second Amendment and all this other stuff, right? So it's funny how these people try to weave that stuff in there, but that's besides the point. But what we know as the facts is that Dion Patterson, he's a 24-year-old man. Again, he's a former military person, and basically, apparently, he was getting treatment with the VA. Which, if any of you have had friends or family who had to go through the Department of Veterans Affairs, I mean, it seems like they all perpetually stay the gang that couldn't shoot straight. It's like they perpetually stay there, and and so. Whatever it was, he was getting treated. It was more on the site. He's dealing with some mental issues, and apparently because he wasn't getting that treatment there, he decided to go. He went to Northside Hospital, and which is kind of north of the city. Is right. Northside is like right. It's right on the it's not in the heart of the city. It's like literally right on the edge of the city. It's right along like 285. And for those who are familiar with that, but it's not in the heart of the city at all. But still, it's, it's a lot of traffic because you got the Georgia 400 there, you got 285, and it looks like he took 75 to get into Cobb, and then got off probably Delk Road or something like that, because it's where all these places I remember, and then they said that's where they somewhere off of there, that's where they got him. So he was going there to get something to help treat him with the mental stuff that he was going through. Okay. And the hospital basically turned him down, and that's when he went off. Okay. And so here again, we have a mental breakdown happening, and that's reaching national attention. Now, the white media, or the media in general, wants to take a story like this, and instead of addressing the central issue that I see in this particular story, and that is mental illness, they want to make it into an anti-gun situation. Deion Patterson does not represent all the gun owners. He doesn't. Okay, so let's be clear with that. What he does represent is someone, or I should say responsible gun owners. What he does represent is a significant demographic amongst our own people who are suffering from mental illness. And this is something that, like I said, with both of these stories, this is what really we should be focused on. There's a lot of people out here on social media, that want to use these stories as a way of drumming up some kind of whatever. We got, he was attacked because he was white, black, talking about what happened in New York. Tariq Nasheed, he's out here running big time on that, and people just gobbling all that up. And of course, you got other people too. No, this is, you're dealing more with a mental breakdown, and it has a whole history that's behind that, and so it's it's obviously is a very sad situation. But here's the thing, as I'm kind of bringing this together. Family, this isn't just in these cases where you have mental issues. As I just emphasized, mental illness is it's a big, broad word. Maybe there's another word I can use, but there's many people just within our own demographic. It's not exclusive to black people. I'm saying, but that's who I'm talking to right now. You got white people out here that got mental issues. You got Asian people who got mental issues. You got Hispanic people that got mental issues. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the people that I know and I love the most, and that's my people. So that's what I'm addressing. I'm only excluding them because they ain't in this conversation. All right. But in this particular case, it just really reminded me of the fact, yet again, of what happens when when we ignore this situation. And I can only tell you, family, just in my own experience, just on YouTube, for example, I've come across many people that, if I had to make a call, so, I mean, numbers of people I come across, all the lights ain't on. I'll just put it that way. I'll just put it that way. And, and it's just what it is. And sometimes it can be a hard thing to talk about, but it's true, family. It's very true. Another place that you'll find people who suffer from mental conditions, negative mental conditions, is religion. I'm going to say that again. And I'm going to get very real with y'all. Okay, like I've always do, but I'm going to get very real with y'all in a moment. You'll find in my life experience, what I've noticed is that you'll find many people who suffer from some type of mental trauma. The first thing that many people in that bracket, what they will do is that they will turn to religion. And this is why in a lot of churches and even beyond, you're going to find people who are like that. Think case in point, when you get to Jim Jones, for example, you have people there. A lot of those people that follow Jim Jones weren't dumb people. A lot of those people were actually smart, But what the issue was that Jim Jones was so manipulative. He was able to tap into that hurt, tap into that pain that these people were suffering, and was able to kind of create this false sense of family and brotherhood and sisterhood or whatever, and was able to lure these people into something to where it ultimately led them to their own destruction. But you see the same thing being played out over and over again. When you think about some of the abuse that our people deal with, let's say in church, when we talk about spiritual abuse, and someone may be just logging in and watching this, my advice to you, if you're just hearing just now, don't comment on what you just heard in the last few minutes. I would prefer you go all the way to the beginning of this video so you can hear the whole conversation. And then if you want to comment, do that. Okay. I'm not speaking to anyone specific right now, but I know conversations like this, they have to be heard in its entirety, because otherwise, because that's one of the biggest problems that we have right now, is that many of our people will respond based on emotion and part of the story instead of listening to the whole thing. So that's what I really want people to do. This is a very, very, very serious discussion. And this is why I wanted to do this video. And so anyway, in my experience, when you think about the abuse that people deal with in religion, whatever your religion or choice is, you have to be either willingly ignorant or there's mentally wounded. That's probably a better word to use. Mentally wounded to still hold on to that abuse that you're enduring over and over again. I'm just trying to tell you. You understand what I'm saying? These are the two things that I've noticed. These are the things that I've noticed that religious circles, if you will, is one of the biggest places that you're going to find people who suffer from these kind of conditions. There's a lot of people out here who are undiagnosed, but they really got some issues going on upstairs. I mean, I'm just saying. And a lot of times we've developed a culture, where, I can't tell you how many jokes out there about people, going crazy on the trains or going crazy on buses and stuff like that. And we make fun and make light of it. But family, but this stuff, when it's not treated, when it's not addressed, it turns into situations like this, like this, what's his name? Deion Patterson, for example, the guy in Atlanta, I know, just on between family members I've known or just people I know dealing with the Department of Veterans Affairs, it takes a family unit to really help someone to navigate through all of that. The red tape and the confusion they put on these guys. A lot of these guys, man, they need some really help. They need some serious help. And when they don't get help, what happens is, I'll give you a case in point. In Camden, New Jersey, you have the hospital down in Camden. It's a trauma center. Now, the hospital is Camden is right on the Delaware River, which is right across. You can see Philadelphia from Camden. That's how close it is. And you have this trauma center, huge trauma center that's right there. And literally right across the street from the trauma center is the train station. Now, that train station, I'm going to tell you right now, it's full of, it's a lot of these people that are there, they got to be patients. And what happens is a lot of these hospitals, what happens is they get these people who are mentally damaged. They treat them the best way they can. And because there's no next of kin in the picture, they release them. Sometimes hospitals, through some government money or whatever, they'll say, here's some money, get on the train and don't come back, basically. Hope they don't see you again. And so this is why you see a lot of these people homeless, but also maybe they got some mental issues going on, always riding the trains and always riding the buses and all that stuff, because they ain't got nowhere else to go. You understand what I'm saying? And so it's, and then when you start inquiring about family, a lot of the cases, the family ain't there to support for one reason or another. Maybe it's too much for them. You know what I mean? Maybe they just don't want to deal with it. Maybe it's a lot of other things. We don't know. But there are a number of reasons why. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of these individuals who are out here, they're out there because the family, one reason or another, it just got toe up. And see, before we start talking about, like in that story, that's why I said put a bookmark on that article I was just reading. Before we start pointing our fingers and wagging our fingers at the government, we first got to look at, okay, what broke down within our own system, if you will. And you'll find that a lot broke down, and people aren't getting the help that they need at home, starting there. You understand what I'm saying? And I'll go even further on this, because I told you about religion. I don't care what church you're a part of. I don't care what religion you're part of. And when it comes to even in the Hebrew space, and I will say this as well, there are numbers of people that I have personally interacted with. Not all, okay? I'm not speaking for everyone that's in the Hebrew space. Don't go there. But I'm telling you, there is a significant number of people that I personally have encountered that just in the conversation I had, you can tell something isn't all the way there. And what we do is we kind of go around that. We try to walk around that like, okay, well, maybe they just being deep. No, some of these people, it's just a little, they got some things going on that they're in need of help. This is why for our platform, and I'm not just sitting here rattling and running my mouth here, family. We're actually really trying to do something about that here on this platform. We're trying to address that by way of addressing health and wellness. Because when you address health and wellness, that is the starting point to begin to start addressing these other issues. Do you understand what I'm saying? And these other issues, it's going to require people who they got it all together up here so that you can properly address that. But I'm gonna tell you right now, family, you can quote, there's folks I've encountered, they can quote every scripture in the book. They can tell you, we are the tribe of this and all this other stuff. But then when I start really listening, or maybe we start conversing, you can just tell something isn't all the way there. And like I said, again, it's not exclusive to just to the Hebrew space. It's all a religion, period. I'm Christian, whatever. Because with Christianity and with religion, I would just say religion in general, it's religion. What religion does, it creates this false sense of family. And you do get a sense of family when you're in religion, because there's a shared common belief, their core beliefs that you embrace, right? But when you begin to step away from those structures, that's when the real people start revealing themselves. That's when people start revealing themselves. Many of you have experienced this yourself. You were part of Name the Religion. And then the moment you said, you know what, I'm done with it, I'm a part ways with it because I'm not seeing eye to eye or whatever it may be. All of these people that claim to be your family, all of a sudden deuces. Meanwhile, the deep issues that you need to be healed from are never addressed. And you may say, well, what about this? I was hurt. I was, when as a child or this or that or whatever. They're like, well, you didn't show up to Bible study, honey. You didn't show up to Bible study. When's the last time you gave offering? All of a sudden it turns into that instead of a general care and concern. Now, but where can people get that? They get it in the home. It starts in the home. See, it should be home first, and then whatever you want your belief system to be, it can be, you can bring that in, but home has got to be center space, period. It's got to be foundational to whatever it is that you're going to do. It's got to start there. The problem that a lot of our people have done is that we blended in some of these other things into it. Sometimes it's government. We blended in government so much into what the home space is supposed to be. We get confused and we don't know what's up. We don't know what the end is up. So we end up blaming everybody else but the home. So these two stories, without going any, I don't have to go too much further with this because, like I said, this didn't need to be a long one. But my point with all of this conversation is looking at these two stories. Don't jump on the train of a lot of these people that are out here on social media right now who are wanting to drive the racial narrative especially when it comes to the Mr. Neely story. You understand what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to that story. Everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon. Well, these white people, and they do this all the time. And then what you see are a lot of emotional people who are driving that story. And then what they'll do is take to social media and say, see, black men, see, you got to be very careful out here, because who knows, you're going to be next. Another person, they may get you. And they keep reverberating this stuff over and over and over and over and over again. Now, most folks that are out here know good and doggone well that's not true. Are there crazy people out here that target people based on the color of their skin? Absolutely. But not this particular case. When you take emotions aside, you'll see that there were some specific things that were going on that led to that situation. We're not saying that the person who did it was right. He was very wrong for what he did. But my point is, emotional people, they don't care about all of that. All they want to do is to scare the hell in you and try to make it seem like, oh, you could be next. And that's taken away from the more meaningful conversation that we need to have when it comes to this situation. Because what we really need to be addressing is our health and our wellness. And by addressing that, we'll be able to properly address these other issues so that we don't have any more of Jordan Neely's are out here, or Deion Patterson's out here doing this stuff as well. Because I'm going to tell you, mental illness is really a huge thing. It's a huge thing. Looking at the food that we eat, the water that we drink. Family, I know some of y'all may get sick and tired of me, or you may get tired of me saying all the time, emphasizing about the importance of getting spring water, or the importance of, taking, supplements and things like that. I know many of you are just, making sure you're exposing yourself to the sun. I know for some of y'all, you think it really doesn't count. It's not really a big deal. It's not quote unquote sexy enough. But trust me, family, from the bottom of my heart, I know what I'm talking about. When you look at a lot of these areas, case in point, when you look at like in Portland, Oregon, or Seattle, Washington, when you look at the climate there, and it tends to be more on the cloudy side most of the time. And when it's cloudy most of the time, guess what people deal with a lot of? Depression. And when you look at, that's one of the highest places in the country that deal with depression. It's those areas that tend to be a lot more cloudy. It's something as simple as that. You understand what I'm saying? So exposing yourself to that, even making sure you're drinking good water. Water plays a very key role in this. Your diet, the amount of sugars that you take in on a daily basis. It starts with us really taking these things that may seem small very seriously. This is why, and I'm finished. I'm completely finished here. This is why for this month, we're doing a health and wellness challenge. I did a video on this just recently, so you can scroll in and watch that video. Please take this seriously when I'm saying to you. Don't just exacerbate all your emotions and all your energy just on these news stories. I want you to really learn from this, and so that you don't have to, so that you can set a new precedent, not only in your family, but also for your legacy, period. And what this health and wellness challenge is a very simple one, is that we're challenging people who are dealing with high blood pressure and also diabetes. If you're dealing with high blood pressure and diabetes, what we're challenging people to do is to every day take black seed oil. Every day. And I go through the details on how much you should take and all that. Take black seed oil every day for 30 days. When you first start, you're going to take your measurements at the beginning of the month. Well, we're already past that now, but you can still do it. And then at the end of the month, we want you to take your measurements again. And we can almost guarantee you that you're going to see a positive difference. It's going to vary based on a lot of factors, based on the individual, based on your eating patterns, based on your weight, based on a lot of other factors. But look, something as small as that, you're going to see a significant difference. Now, why am I focusing on high blood pressure? How do we get to high blood pressure, Dwayne, and diabetes? I'm here to make war. Well, you can't make war if you're not healthy. You understand what I'm saying? So high blood pressure and diabetes, they play a very critical role in how you analyze situations, how you judge situations. They play very critical roles in this. So a lot of our people, unfortunately, we suffer from that. So the first things first, I don't care. I don't give a, watch your mouth, Dwayne. I don't care what's going on in Washington. I don't care about these politicians. I don't care about any of this stuff that they say, they claim they can give us. The only thing I care about is my people, my family, and my people. And I know that there are some very simple things that we can do to help eradicate this situation. They're very simple. And I was, and so all I can do is keep repeating and repeating and repeating and hope and praying that somebody will get it. Because I'm telling you, if you do it, you will begin to see a change. You will begin to see a difference. But I will tell you straight up, family, listen, there are numbers of people on these social media platforms. There's some psychological stuff going on. And just like in that story that we was reading about Jordan Neely, some people, man, they come from some very tragic backgrounds and situations that they still ain't healed from. And they never been diagnosed. They never gotten counseling or anything like that. But they be steadily in the chat. All praise to the Most High. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm not saying all people that say that are crazy. Don't run there with me, okay? Get out of your emotions. But my point is that some of the worst, the most undiagnosed people can oftentimes appear to be the most like they got it all together. They will school you on different stuff about, we got to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. So you got to make sure you read your Bible every day, what church you going to, and all this stuff. And then when you start listening to these people and you start developing a relationship with some of these people, you start realizing that, wait a minute, there's some other stuff going on here. You understand what I'm saying? So my challenge to you is this. Don't just hear these stories, because I'm telling you, there's a ton of people right now making videos on this and saying how the government needs to do something, and he was probably this, and he was probably a tether and all this other nonsense. We don't care about that. What we care about here is your health and your welfare and your wellness. And the way we can address it is starting off with the smallest steps possible. And one of the things what we're doing here is, like I said, we're doing this health and wellness challenge. Family, listen, this ain't some marketing gimmick to make you buy, black seed oil from us. I don't care where you buy it from. I don't. You can get it from wherever. I don't care. You can get it from wherever. But do yourself a favor if you're suffering from this. Do yourself a favor and get it. The investment is very small. The only investment really when it comes down to it is your time and your willingness to do it. That's it. And by doing so, you're going to begin to see a change in how you deal with stuff and how you rationalize, how you think. You ain't going to be as emotional on a lot of these things that you come across. You understand what I'm saying? It's some people, just the smallest of things, it just sets them off. And then when you start, talking to them and you realize, man, their blood pressure, and then they wonder why their blood pressure is always high up in the heavenlies. It's because that was never treated. And the only thing they're depending on is the government in providing them with more pills and all that stuff. Family, listen, for those of you who know us on this platform, and I'm definitely bringing this to a close, good and doggone well, we have spent a great deal of time going through the history of this country when we talk about the medical industry and how racist it is. We have gone through that over and over and over and over again. So we are not denying that there's no racial element when it comes to how black people are treated within the medical industry. We are not denying it at all. But what we're also saying is this: there are things, foundational things that we can do for ourselves. And that's what we're encouraging here, so that we don't have another one of these cases where you got these men finding themselves in these unfortunate situations. I'm not going to get distracted by focusing all my attention on what this stupid behind white boy did to this man. You know what I mean? By killing him. I'm not going to, that was wrong. That's it. But my real focus here is really on our people, and that we'll learn from this. It's a hard lesson, but we'll learn from this and we'll begin to make adjustments so that we're not repeating this. A lot of you are treating people. My daughter, she shared with me a story. I heard of this story before. This is how crazy this is. It was a woman out here, single mother, She has 6 children. All of them got ADHD. All of them. I can't even imagine. I couldn't even begin to imagine what that must be like. She's a single mother. She got 6 children. All of them got ADHD. And some of y'all, I know you got one child that got ADHD. Can you imagine having 6 children? Like all of them around the same age and they all got ADHD? How does that even play out? I mean, when you think about when they get older and all that, you a single mom, how is that even possible? Autism. I said ADHD. Autism. How does that even play out? Like, I couldn't even begin to imagine that. But see, here's the thing. That's a very extreme case. There are parents out there that just got one, single parents. And when you listen to these parents out here, and some of y'all may be out here that have children that have autism or ADHD, or, one of those, you're on the spectrum or whatever, it's a lot of work and it's very stressful. But there are things that we can do to address that. But to do that is going to take a team effort. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't give a rip about this government. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't give a rip because whatever their solution is going to be tied to the same thing that probably gave it to them in the first place. So why not let's begin to invest in ourselves for a change. And let's start believing this stuff that we put out here. And what I said that earlier, as far as like how people run to religion a lot of times who have been mentally hurt, you know what I mean? The same thing can be said for some of these people who are the FBA people. Some of these FBA people I've encountered. I could tell there's something ain't all up there. Or, some of these other people that, that get into these different things. It's like now what I'm noticing is that a lot of our people, instead of addressing some of these issues as is, we're starting to kind of fraction off into some of these other pockets of stuff that are not designed at all to address these things that I'm talking about. They're not. There's no functionality. I want you to listen to me. Name me your ministry. Name me your church. Name me whatever it is, religion that you're part of. And I want you to point out to me what structure do they have set in place to address people who are dealing with mental illness. I want you to name that to me. So you can preach to me all day about we the tribe of Israel. Okay, well, let me ask you something. Does Israel got a mental institution? Do they got something set up to deal with people who have been mentally hurt and disrupted? Because if you don't have something set up like that, then shut up and get out of my face. Because this is a real issue. Because I could sit up here all day and go through genetics, talk about where your lineage came from and you came from here. But if there's no conversations, and I want you to do that, this is your assignment. All of these Hebrews, all of these Christians, all these people that you listen to on these platforms, ask them, where in your platform do you deal with these issues specifically? Because if that ain't being addressed, then you're just wasting your time. Because I'm telling you, this is a big issue. It's a very big issue. It's a very big issue. And if that ain't part of the conversation, then you're just wasting your time. All you're doing is people still listen to you. Oh, praise the Most High. Still popping the pills and doing all that stuff. But you still this ain't being addressed here. This is still not being addressed here. That young girl that we showcase. Wow. The young girl that we had on the broadcast last week, we talked about, it was a video we did where her step parents basically drove her to Atlanta, young black girl and her twin brother, dropped them off in Atlanta. They asked them, now they all the way up in Chicago, and according to them, the step parents were like, where you want to go? If there's any place in the world you want to go, where would you want to go? And so she's up here naming different places, and one of the places said Atlanta. They said, oh, really? Go ahead and pack your stuff up. We gone. And next thing they know, they drop them off, go on, open the door, let them out, and kept it moving. Dropped the brother and the sister out there with nothing. And again, beautiful girl. But again, you could tell that there's something it ain't all there. You know what I'm saying? And no telling. And she already talked about some of the stuff that was happening to her on the street. Family, this is stuff that happens every day. And I'm telling you, for me, on my watch, in this generation, I'm going to keep on talking about this. Because I know I can understand. Look, in the past generations, they may have been very hush-hush about this. Well, don't say nothing because, Uncle so-and-so, he be messing with them little girls and all that stuff. I'm going to call his ass out. You know what I'm saying? If I hear Uncle so-and-so or cousin so-and-so touching these little girls or doing all this mental, doing this stuff where he's mentally destroying our children, we better start calling that stuff out for what it is. We got to start calling that stuff out now, family, because a people, you can't sustain as a people if you keep things hush hush. You understand what I'm saying? Don't let me find out, because I'll put your behind on the Summer Jam screen. So we have to be real when we're dealing with this stuff. Don't play these games what the media is doing. The only reason why anytime the media brings up stories that feature us is for their benefit. It's for them to get gain off of it. They don't give two craps about you. It's about time we start caring about ourselves and start investing in ourselves when it comes to these particular issues. Family, I didn't want to go this long, but I hope you guys really got something out of this. But I wanted to take the time to talk about this particular issue because it's far easier just to jump into the race narratives than to deal with the actual issues. And in this particular case, we're talking about mental instability, and we have to deal with it. All right. And this mental instability, a lot of times it's as close as our homes in many cases. Start having open conversations with your children. Ask them about those times they spent had those overnight stays at their cousin's house and all of that. Because see, if you ain't having those conversations, guess where they're going to go? They're going to go on TikTok. They're going to go on Facebook. They're going to go to their friends and all that. They're going to go everywhere else. But we have to start having the conversations here. You understand what I'm saying? In our own homes, so that we can be the hospital for our people. We don't need these people to take care of us. We can do it ourselves, but we got to first show the willingness to do so, okay? Family, that's all I have. Thank you so much. May not go live again tonight. If not tonight, we'll see tomorrow, okay? Love you very much, and talk to you again soon.